Hello, this is Soundout here, back with another Power Ranger review. Today we'll be taking a look at the Power Rangers Dino Charge Megazord. So without further ado, let's take a look at this year's new Megazord. Alright, before we begin, I do want to take a quick look at the packaging for Power Rangers Dino Charge. This is a new year, a new non-Megaforce thing, but you wouldn't know that because I've barely reviewed anything Megaforce or Super Megaforce. This is the packaging. I don't know why I was waving it around so much, but as you can see, this is the Dino Charge Megazord, which is the American equivalent to Kyoryujin's Kyoryujin, which I reviewed earlier this year. Now, the Dino Charge Megazord here does have some really nice packaging art. That's why I did want to show it off. As you can see here, it's got the three dinosaurs. One has a battery in its mouth, and then two have these little lights. You can see that there was a Dino Charger here at one point. You have three Zords that combine. You have Mr. Dino Charge Red Ranger here. It also shows how the Dino Chargers work. They can be scanned into the Power Rangers Dino Charge Scanner app on iOS and Android. Plus, it can also work with the Dino Charge Morpher, the Zords, and the mini Dino Zords that come in the Dino Charger 2-packs. So that's fun. On this side, you got a nice picture of the Dino Charge Megazord from the series, which is really, really cool. Also says, charge it up. The toy itself was packaged in here. I just didn't want to repackage it. But I did want to mention on the back, I do like how you can see all the Dino Chargers here that we know of. You can see Dino Charge Red Ranger there. His Tyrannosaurus Zord there. The Zord Builder system works with the Raptor and Parazords and the two of the Dino Cycles here, plus one of these Zord armor figures, which aren't out yet, but the other four are. You can also see up here that it shows the little gimmicks that activate with each Zord when you use a Dino Charger with them. As you can see up here, you have a nice picture of the Dino Charge Megazord as it appears in the series, or the Japanese source footage for that matter. Really nice. I like how they've put images of the thing from the show on the packaging. Gives it a really nice look, and I love the red color. It's a nice new color, because, you know, nothing from Super Megaforce had a red background. Anyways, moving along to the thing you actually care about, and that thing would be the Tyrannosaurus Rex Zord. And, as you can see, he's quite a biggin. Using the term biggin because I'm apparently old now. Now, this guy is quite large. Here is an armored might figure about 7 to 8 inches tall, depending on your scaling. As you can see, he's quite large. It is an impressively sized Zord. He is the biggest one we've gotten so far of the main 5. And he is the majority of the Megazord, which is why we're covering him first. But before we can even do anything with the Tyrannosaurus, we need to be able to charge him up, and that would be with a Dino Charger. You only get one with the Megazord as opposed to Japan's 3, but it is a translucent #1 Tyranno Charger. And it's really nice looking, actually. I'm quite impressed. It is scaled down. All the Zords and Dino Chargers are scaled down from their Japanese counterparts. But for what it is really nice. Yes, it is smaller than the Japanese Gabutira Judenchi, which you can see here. So it is smaller, but that is not a bad thing. While in Japan, the Judenchi only had 2 sides to the picture, the American Dino Chargers have 4 pictures of the Dino Charger powering up and powering down, which is really cool. And it does move a lot quicker, which means it looks like an animation more so than a thing flipping around. And that's really cool. And I do appreciate that. Now, on either end, you do have something going on here. On this end, you have a QR code that will allow you to scan it into the Power Rangers Dino Charge Scanner app, which has been the most fun, free app I've gotten in a long time. Now, on this side, you got the little bump here, which will activate the appropriate sound on the Dino Charge Morpher, which I don't have, and I'm currently not planning to buy, as I do have the Japanese equivalent. But it is quite nice. Now, one thing to note is in Japan, you could plug the battery in on either end and it'll activate the sounds. But in America, you can only plug it in this way, which is the correct way and how they do it in the show, so that's fine by me. So let's charge it up, and we can put it inside the Tyrannosaurus. So all I gotta do is open his mouth, which is cool because it stays open as opposed to Gabutyra, who didn't. Plug it in, and then push it down, and a little fin pops up, which is really cool. It's a neat little gimmick. It's not too complicated. So you can see the batteries in there. You could scan a QR code in the middle of a Tyrannosaurus mouth, which is pretty neat. Other than that, the Tyrannosaurd is quite nice. He's standing high. He looks quite tall, which is really cool. His tail here is a little longer. He's got a nice rubbery end to it. There is some paint missing, like these silver lines here and here. And pretty much there's no paint on the legs, which is unfortunate. But they did keep the important details like the silver here, the yellow, and the black section in the middle is really nice looking. And he just looks really good. I'm actually really impressed. Out of all these Zord Builder compatible Megazords we've gotten, this is probably one of the best looking. Speaking of Zord Builder, there is a port up here and 2 ports on either leg here. And there's also clips for combinations. But other than that, not much else Zord Builder wise. His legs are on a really heavy ratchet, which is really nice. Which means you can actually get him to pose kind of like that or like that. So he's kind of roaring to the sky. Or if you want, you can have him lean forward slightly and balance on his toes. So that's a thing. Oh, overall, this is quite the awesome Zord. You know, his little arms can move and his mouth can open, plus his head can turn kind of awkwardly. You can just be confused Tyranno. But yeah, for a, American Zord, which haven't been that great in recent years, to be honest, this is probably the best. I am really impressed with the Zord overall. And alright, I will do the comparison, since I know a lot of people are going to want me to do this, since I do own both the American and Japanese versions. Here is the Japanese Gabutyra. Now, Gabutyra is much larger. That is the first thing you will notice. Gabutyra is larger. Now, that is not making him better, because one of these Zords is better than the other, and I'm going to give you the hint, it's not Gabutyra. As much as we like Kyoryujin around here, the Tyrannosaurus is much better. As you can see, the Gabutyra looks kind of stumpy, kind of fat in this section here. He looks really short. The Tyrannosaurus looks tall. He's actually proportionally taller than Gabutyra. And along with the tail kind of streamlines to the end here, while on Gabutyra it's this giant piece that slides out. Like, that thing is huge, and the American version's tail is a lot slimmer. It looks nicer aesthetically. Now, the 2 advantages the Japanese version has over the American one is the added paint. It does have sound effects built in for samba music fun. But other than that, it doesn't do much better. Overall, I gotta say, as much as I love Gabutyra, the Tyrannosaurus is better. And it's easier to play with, too, because it's not as fragile as the Japanese version, and it's a lot lighter and a lot smaller, so it's more manageable, and it can actually kind of pose. Which is a lot of big pluses when it comes to Megazords, as they're not known for posability, but this guy can actually pose a couple different ways, and that's super cool. You can even have him you can have him stepping forward. You can't do that with Gabutyra, he'd fall over. So, overall, I gotta say, the Dino Charge Megazord is better than its Japanese counterpart. Good job, Bandai. Now, I'm not trying to be lazy by reviewing the Stegosaurus and Triceratops Zords at the same time, but they're very limited, and I don't feel like they each need an individual camera setup. This will save time overall. They're mostly the same mold. As you can see, the Stegosaurus is quite nice. He is Dino Charge Blue Ranger's Zord. He looks really great. He's got painted face. Everything is well painted. He looks really cool overall. His legs can move, and this is the same on both, by the way. This piece comes off, and that's pretty much the base body. You change out the headpiece, and you get a whole new Zord. That's the similarities between the two. Now, what's interesting about these is that, being ARM components, they do have the battery gimmick. Now, in Japan, you would just slide the battery in. We're going to borrow Tyrannos for now. You'd slide it in, and you'd have to hold down a button on the bottom to get to slide in all the way. But on this, you have a nice little slider switch, which pulls the battery in. And it also activates the gimmick, so he gets a little spike on his head. Now, the one thing is that the mouth does not close while the battery's inserted, which is not really that problematic. It's not too big of an issue. But by having the slider switch, this means you can activate the gimmick without having a battery. You just slide the switch back, and it opens it up. So that's why it's not really an issue that the second and third Dino Chargers aren't included with the Megazord, because you don't actually need them. You just slide the switch back, and you can activate the gimmick, which is super cool. Speaking of other Zords, Triceratops here is mostly the same. As you can see, it's the same body mold. They just added this piece and gave it a new head. It is pink. There was that whole time where it was purple on the prototype, and I never really believed that was going to be the case. But I am glad to see that it did come out as pink because, hey, you got a pink Triceratops in both countries. Now, like I said, the battery is not necessary for the gimmick, but we'll make it more exciting by doing so. Plug the Dino Charger in here. And you can push this in without moving the switch either. And bam, tail pops out. Now, it only pops out in one section, but that's fine. You just slide this forward, pop the battery out, and you're good to go. So, overall, these guys are really neat. I like the way they look. I like the fact that you can actually move their legs and they're not ratcheted, which allows for some slight posing here. But other than that, they're two little neat Zords. They're really tiny, too. They're a lot smaller than the Tyrannosaurus. And, of course, we have to compare them to Drosera and good old Stegochi. Now, looking at the two blue things over here. As you can see, proportionately smaller, which is fine. Gimmick here works actually better than the American one. The spike actually stands up. This one, you can get to stand up, but, you know, it kind of only goes part of the way. Other than that, the only advantages the Japanese one has is that this is actually painted here, this spike, and the battery can be stored inside. You don't have to keep removing it. But other than that, honestly, I like the Stegosaurus better. And that's mostly because the final combination does look better. The spikes are a little rounded off here, I will say that, as opposed to this. But this guy, while missing a couple paint apps and not being able to hold his battery, it makes him a lot lighter. This guy is a little hefty. And this guy's legs are stuck in certain positions. They are ratcheted. They can only move so much before ratcheting into place. This guy, you can kind of have him posed and actually pose him. You can be half running or half falling over, which gives it more playability, which is much appreciated. And moving them out of the way, we'll bring in our two pink Triceratops buddies here. So we got the Triceratops Zord and Drosera. Now, the Triceratops Zord, I believe, is the one that has suffered the most from the American mold, and that is because it did have a big moving gimmick on this. When it moves to an arm, this piece moves over. They didn't want to have that being a separate piece of engineering, so there is a set of horns here and a set of horns here, which gives a double horn syndrome. But other than that, it's relatively the same. The drill does stick out farther on Drosera than with the Triceratops. So if you're looking at one pink Triceratops, just as pink Triceratopses go, Drosera is a little bit better. But when you're going for the overall set, with the Stegosaurus and the Tyrannosaurus being better, it's not worth it to get Drosera. So that's pretty much it. The Stegosaurus and Triceratops Zords, there's not much else to them. Alright, it's finally time to form the Dino Charge Megazord, and the fact I can pose the Tyrannosaurus like that to make this more epic is just awesome. So, let's begin. We begin with the Stegosaurus Zord. First off, you want to remove his back piece and fold this out. This is now the Megazord sword. And then all you gotta do is fold his little legs in here, like that. You also want to open up his mouth, as it is cool that these Zords do bite down to connect, which I think is super neat. Also, if you have the Stegosaurus Dino Charger, it'd be good to put that in there just for show accuracy's sake. Take the Triceratops, all you need to do is fold in the little legs, and you also want to open up the mouth for the combination. And that's pretty much it. So the Stegosaurus and Triceratops are just the arms, which means the rest of the transformation goes to the Tyranno. First off, you want to remove the tail, just give it a nice little pull, and then you want to split this open, as this will become the backpack. Next, you want to take the Tyrannosaur, and you want to fold his legs down. They will come down here, and you'll notice that there's these little pegs that just slide into the hole. They push in a little bit, and that'll allow for the leg to have a solid connection. When I then bring and rotate the Tyrannosaurus torso up like this, fold down his little arms, let's split the legs, and down will pop the helmet piece. You then want to turn the upper torso, bring up the head of the Megazord, and then plug the backpack piece on. And now we can actually combine some Zords. First of all, the Triceratops, it clicks into place through 2 clips up here. Same with the Stegosaurus. Give him the sword. And finally don him with his helmet. And now the Dino Charge Megazord is complete. Alright, so here we are, the new Megazord, the lead Megazord of the 22nd season of Power Rangers. Show has lasted a long time for American TV. Now, this guy here is quite nice looking. As you can see, he is relatively tall. He is a taller version of the Tyranno. To show that height difference, he is now about a armored mite and a half tall. But he still feels quite bulky. He is slimmed down from his Japanese counterpart, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But this is not a bad thing by any means. This guy is rock solid. I can shake him like this and nothing will fall off no matter how hard I try. This guy's staying together and that is awesome. And other than that, let's talk design. The design of this thing is quite awesome. Being a 3-part Megazord for a 5-part 5 Ranger team is awesome. I don't think it's happened before. Usually there's a 3-part Megazord and then they add 2 Rangers or whatever. But I don't think it's ever been a 5-person team and then have a 3-part Megazord. Yeah, there was in space where they only had a 2-part Megazord for a 5-person team. They all piloted it together. Now this is strictly piloted by the first 3 Rangers, which are red, blue, and pink. Green and black can also pilot this in the Japanese version. Whether that'll happen in America, we're not sure. But it is cool. Now, in terms of detail, there is no paint on the legs. I will say that that is not a good thing. He looks really nice here, and then everything below his, waist is unpainted, and it looks a little weird. I honestly wish it would look better. The Zord builder ports here aren't really an issue. They don't look too bad, honestly. The one up here is for combination purposes, which is nice. And other than that, he looks really good, being, 3 fully painted Zords. I love this yellow stripe that runs through the design. I love the silver across the chest. It gives it a really nice look to it, and I keep saying that term. The helmet up here is where the only paint issues ever occurred. You can see that there's a little, well, you can't see because it needs to focus first. There is a little bit of yellow paint spill into the black. Other than that, the face itself is really well painted, and it's hard to focus on because of how tiny it is. But you can see, that's a nicely painted face. Paint bleed isn't really an issue on this Megazord, and it may have just got lucky. I didn't really have a choice. This is the only one that was left at my Toys R Us. But this guy just looks awesome. His articulation-wise, he has awkwardly placed shoulders. They run at an angle, so they don't run straight up and down, but they do run at an angle. They can go 360 if you remove the backpack, which is nice. And it does allow him to use his, well, kind of awkward sword, but it works. It really works. You can have him like that, and that. You can have him doing that. That is super cool. But other than that, he doesn't really have much posability. The legs still can rotate at the hip here for the transformation, and because balancing, we can do that for about half a second. Oh, or we can do that and it'll stay. We have a running Megazord, guys. That's a thing. So, the fact this guy actually has posability, to some extent, you can get a couple poses out of him. They are a little unstable, but it is possible. But other than that, I gotta say, the Dino Charge Megazord is awesome. And let's get the obvious comparison out of the way and bring in Kyoryujin. Now, Kyoryujin is much larger, proportionately, and he does have some extra paint. The legs also have these little panels that flip down to fill them in a little bit. The Dino Charge Megazord does not. There's this black around the head, makes the red stand up there. The Dino Charge Megazord is not, but it actually does have additional pegs, clips up here, which are not present on Kyoryujin. So, which is better? The Dino Charge Megazord is better. Because when you shake Kyoryujin, his arms fall off. When you shake him, nothing falls off. This is the biggest issue, I think, with the Kyoryujin mecha and the Juden Ryu, is that they are extremely fragile. Like, there have been more reports of clips breaking on this guy than there have been for, like, the Hurricaneger mecha from 2002. This mecha line of Kyoryujin is the most fragile of recent years, and it's really a shame because they are gigantic, fun dinosaurs, but they do suffer from the fragility. But they also suffer from being really bulky. This looks closer to the show than this does. This giant backpack, because they put the helmet inside the backpack instead of inside the legs, they put the helmet inside the legs, now you can barely see the backpack. It's still there for accent, but it's not overwhelming. Overall, the one thing that Kyoryujin has, outside of sound effects, is that the sword can form its shield form. And the Dino Charge Megazord can't do that thing that no one's going to pose it with, because who poses a Megazord with a shield? Especially when it mostly uses the sword in the series anyways. Also, this guy looks like he's been to the gym too much and can't put his arms down. This guy's more normal. Also, the arms, when they don't fall off, can only rotate up. They can't rotate back, they can only go up. Overall, the Dino Charge Megazord is awesome. And it's not just my Kyoryujin that falls apart when you touch it, it's almost all of them. And when it comes down to it, if you like Kyoryujin, if you don't care about Power Rangers, if you are just a fan of Juden Sentai Kyoryujin, and you want battery-powered dinos that actually stay together and don't fall apart on you by touching them or looking at them the wrong way, by all means, get the Dino Charge Megazord. This is for fans of Power Rangers who are collecting the new line for Dino Charge. This is for fans of the show, when it airs, because it hasn't aired yet. And this is fans of Kyoryujin who want toys that don't break on them. I have a feeling that it's going to be a very long time before the clips break on this guy, if they ever do. These are some of the sturdiest clips I have seen Bandai of America produce, and some of the sturdiest Zord build reports to that extent. I am super happy with the Dino Charge Megazord, and I am so glad that I made the decision to wait to see what Bandai of America was going to do with the line, instead of collecting the Japanese releases. I am super happy with the Dino Charge Megazord, and well, he is a little sparse to find right now. He only was available at one Toys R Us in my city, and he was $35. But other than that, I mean, he's going to start coming to more stores regularly, and he should be able to easy to find in the next couple months. But overall, I would highly recommend him. He is just awesome. Now, this is not the only Dino Zords to come out in Wave 1 of Dino Charge, as we do have 2 more. So stay tuned next time when we'll take a look at the Para and Raptor Zords. And be sure to check out HeroTaku.com for all your Power Rangers news, reviews, and more. Until next time, saying goodbye.